Welcome to my white void, aka my kitchen, which is completely untreated. It sounds abysmal, but this is what you asked for. Currently my air conditioning is running, so we have a lot of background noise, and I have 3 microphones set up. I have a shotgun microphone, the MKH416, and 2 small diaphragm condensers, the Neumann KM184, which is cardioid, and the Neumann, hello Neumann, KM185, which is a hypercardioid SDC. The microphones are about 10 inches from my mouth or the sound source. They are being overboomed and angled downwards, and I want to hear if there is any kind of difference in the amount of background noise as well as the amount of reverb that is picked up by any of these microphones. Here's a quick sample speaking staccato. Here's a quick sample speaking staccato. Here's a quick sample speaking staccato on each microphone so we can hear how much reverb each of them picks up on each microphone so we can hear how much reverb each of them picks up on each microphone so we can hear how much reverb each of them picks up. Now I've more than doubled the distance to the microphones. I'm about 22 inches or around 56 centimeters. I'll play each of the microphones back to back so you can hear how they sound in this environment at this distance. Now I've more than doubled the distance to the microphones. I'm about 22 inches or around 56 centimeters. I'll play each of the microphones back to back so you can hear how they sound in this environment at this distance. Now I've more than doubled the distance to the microphones. I'm about 22 inches or around 56 centimeters. I'll play each of the microphones back to back so you can hear how they sound in this environment at this distance. What if I was talking into the side of the microphones? Do we have any kind of weird sounds or artifacting on any of them, or do they sound okay? What if I was talking into the side of the microphones? Do we have any kind of weird sounds or artifacting on any of them, or do they sound okay? What if I was talking into the side of the microphones? Do we have any kind of weird sounds or artifacting on any of them, or do they sound okay? What about from the other side of the microphones? Again, I will give you 3 samples of the exact same recording on each mic. What about from the other side of the microphones? Again, I will give you 3 samples of the exact same recording on each mic. What about from the other side of the microphones? Again, I will give you 3 samples of the exact same recording on each mic. Now the AC turned off, but now what if I'm 6 feet behind the microphones? If I'm talking from here, do any of the microphones exhibit any kind of artifacting, or do any of them reject more noise? Now the AC turned off, but now what if I'm 6 feet behind the microphones? If I'm talking from here, do any of the microphones exhibit any kind of artifacting, or do any of them reject more noise? Now the AC turned off, but now what if I'm 6 feet behind the microphones? If I'm talking from here, do any of the microphones exhibit any kind of artifacting, or do any of them reject more noise? All right, I think that's all the testing I'm going to do on these microphones. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that was insightful. Now let's jump back to the studio so I can share my thoughts. Dang, it feels good to be a gangster as well as be back in the studio with some decent treatment. Before I share my opinions, let me know in the comments down below what you heard. Is there one of the microphones that you preferred? Do you think one really suffered from being in such a terrible environment? Go ahead, take your time, pause the video if you must, but I am going to share my thoughts right now. In an environment like that is completely untreated with that amount of reverb and background noise, every single microphone sounded abysmal. Shotgun microphone, cardioid, and hypercardioid. Every single one of them was awful. If anybody came to me and said, hey, here's how my room sounds. What microphone should I get to fix it and get a good sound? My advice would be, get some treatment. No microphone is going to fix that. So that's the first thing I have to say. My advice would be get some sound blankets. Build some baffles, do something to mitigate the amount of reflections. I understand you may not own the space you're in, so you can't do any kind of permanent modifications, but you can buy some moving blankets for pretty affordable, throw some on the ground, get some tea stands or something, throw some moving blankets over that behind the microphone to try to reduce a bit more of the reflections. Because regardless of the microphone, if that's the space you're in, it's going to sound bad. Now, as far as ranking which microphone was best in that environment, I thought the shotgun microphone did a better job than the cardioid SDC, and then between the shotgun and the hypercardioid SDC, I think it was kind of a toss-up between them. In certain instances, when I wasn't moving around, I thought the shotgun did better. In other instances, I thought the hypercardioid did better. But when I backed up to 22 inches away in that god-awful environment, the shotgun microphone did the best. That's really not a shock to me. Something else that I want to point out from an earlier test that I did, because yes, I did refilm the test to include 2 SDCs at 6 p.m. I haven't eaten dinner yet, I haven't finished filming the podcast, and I haven't edited or done the thumbnail. But earlier today, I want to share that the off-axis coloration of the shotgun microphone in that environment as well was worse than the small diaphragm condenser. That's no surprise. That's to be expected. The shotgun microphones are incredibly directional on the front, but once you start going off axis, they sound bad. So if you do have reflections coming in from the sides, that will be colored nastily by the polar pattern of the shotgun. And here is that sample from earlier today. Now I'll play the exact same recording moving around the microphones to see if a dynamic and moving sound source causes issues on the shotgun microphone or the SDC, and if there's any kind of difference in how the microphones treat the environment. Now I'll play the exact same recording moving around the microphones to see if a dynamic and moving sound source causes issues on the shotgun microphone or the SDC, and if there's any kind of difference in how the microphones treat the environment. But I think it's important to remember why I even did these tests in the first place. The reason I did the test last week is in my series of videos where I was suggesting microphone types for online content creators, I said, if you're going to be using your microphone 12 inches away from your mouth, I would recommend a small diaphragm condenser or a shotgun microphone. And frankly, after my tests, I still hold by that. I think that advice is fine. Because if there is a content creator who is investing in a shotgun microphone or SDC, and their room sounds anything like my kitchen, the first piece of advice I have, do something, do something. Do anything to fix that, because no matter what you get, that's gonna sound terrible. I understand there are cases where a shotgun microphone may not be the right choice. If you're a proper boom operator, you're queuing all over the place, that makes perfect sense. But if you are a content creator where you make videos or record audio at home, the microphone is static, and you have control over your environment, I think an SDC or, yes, even a shotgun microphone is more than fine. But that is based on my very limited testing. I got a few comments from people saying, hey, I use the NTG5, sounds great. That is a shorter shotgun microphone, as SoundSpeeds pointed out. So by recommending shotgun microphones, I don't think that my advice would necessarily misguide people or lead them to making a terrible decision that's going to yield maybe subpar audio. Now, I may still need to make some qualifiers, so I will do that. And when I publish the magnum opus, the 60-minute long video, I will add some notes. If you're in a completely untreated space, treat it. If you're queuing all over the place and the microphone is dynamic, not the recording type or the capsule type, but if you are moving it around a lot, maybe an SDC would be better. But for static content creation, I think it's still fine. And the last thing that I want to discuss about the tests that I did is why did I compare the microphones tip to tip as opposed to capsule to capsule? What I mean by that is the ends of the microphones were lined up when I was recording the tests versus having the capsules of the microphones lined up. Because if you didn't know this, the capsule for a shotgun microphone is not at the end of the interference tube. It is a couple inches back in the middle of the interference tube. So why did I not line up the capsules and instead I lined up the ends of the microphones? Doesn't that skew the results? Kind of, but not really. What I wanted to accomplish with my tests was demonstrating the real-world application of these microphones. What I mean is if you are distance miking and overhead booming with an SDC or a shotgun microphone, where are you going to place them? You're going to place them as close to the frame as you possibly can. That doesn't mean you're going to place the capsule as close to the edge of frame as you can, because that would mean the shotgun microphone would be 3 or 4 inches into your frame. You're going to have the tip of the microphone just barely out of frame. So technically, that does mean the capsule of an SDC is going to be a few inches closer to the sound source. But in the test, what you heard was the closest that either microphone would be in a real-world application. They were as close as they could get to my mouth, to the sound source, without them actually making it into the frame. So that is my justification for why I moved forward with comparing them tip to tip versus capsule to capsule.